I'm Gail Kislevitz, and today I will be speaking with Mike Reif on behalf of the Theodore Corbett Institute for Running History Research. Mike was born October 1948 in Brooklyn, New York. He has one brother and is married to Carol, a runner, and they have three children. He is a retired professor of pediatrics at the University of Rochester, New York, where he was the director of the neonatal division. He attended Forest Hills High School and then Westchester Community College for 2 years before transferring to the State University of Brockport, where he received his BA in biology. He went on at the same school to receive his master's in special education and adapted education. He was passionate about identifying kids as early as possible who had developmental issues to help them advance. He has run a total of 24 marathons. His first was the 1967 Cherry Hill Marathon, where he was told to just follow Ted. And I'm sure we will hear more about that later. He has been a coach for 28 years for the Genesee Valley Harriers Runners Club, and prior to that, he ran for Milrose. You will find Mike to be very engaging and passionate about what he does, and he is most proud of, in his professional career, of helping others. And I think that probably says a lot of who he is. So with that introduction, Mike, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
And I'm good, thank you. And I'm going to start with the first question. When did you get your start in running?
Well, as a young child, actually in athletics, but running was part of it. My family was very much into gymnastics, and I attended a German gymnastics school, which also had running involved in it. And there was a slogan at the time, having a sound mind and a sound body. And I believed that from a very young age. And then when I got into elementary school, I happened to be naturally gifted with speed. So I was the fastest kid in the school.
Wow, that's great. In elementary school.
Elementary school, right. And so being that, we played a lot of games in the schoolyard. I was always picked to be on the team because I could run the bases. I could be better at dodgeball than many of them. So that kind of inspired me to pursue more running activities. When I got into junior high, I ran cross country and track and field. And there, I really developed an even greater appreciation for fitness and running. And we would do things like the 600-meter dash at field day or track meets. And when I got into high school, I became more of a distance runner, running everything from the half mile to the 2 mile. And I went to Forest Hills High School in Queens. And during that period of time, I became the team captain. And I was also involved with the Boy Scouts, where we did a lot of athletic activities, including running races and what have you. And so I developed a real bond with running and leadership activities. And in college, I wound up in my first year of college running cross country, and that was at Westchester Community College. And I was undefeated in cross country. And then the school did not have an indoor or outdoor track team. And that's when I started going to my first road race in December of 1966. And it was a 25K in Greenwich, Connecticut. And at that race, I did very well for, at that time, actually 17 years old. I was 18, I apologize on that. Joe Kleinerman was there with a bunch of the Milrose athletes, and he said, "Hey, how about coming down to Macomb Dam Park and running with us on the weekend?" So lo and behold, the following weekend, there I was, trucking down from, I lived in Westchester to the Bronx by Yankee Stadium, and I started running with all these great runners, including Ted Corbett.
That is such a great start to your, I mean, your whole running career has sounds amazing. And I mean, you grew up in the era where there was the President's Council for Fitness. I mean, fitness was really taking hold while you were going through school back then.
That's right. In fact, President Kennedy challenged not only the Army, but citizens for more physical fitness and said, I challenge you to walk or run 50 miles. So actually, at age 15, my brother and I did just that. We ran, we walked from Forest Hills all the way out to Long Island, and it took us about, I think 18 hours of walking and running.
50
So,
miles
50 miles.
in one day.
In one day. And then we took the Long Island Railroad back home. And
Riot.
yeah, it is a riot.
Seriously.
People ask me today, did you ever do an ultra marathon? And I said, well, not officially, but I did do that. And that was really my first ultra before it became Vogue.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Did you keep scrapbooks or diaries or logbooks back then?
Actually, I was so interested in the running, the sport, that in high school I started a diary because I had read books of how people had kept logs. And I had this very detailed, one full page of where I ran, what I ate, what was the track like, what was the weather, what did I do that night, how did I run in a race? I still have that log.
Oh my God. How long did you keep it for?
Well, about 2 years probably. And by the time I got to college, I got pretty busy with all kinds of things. So I stopped doing it then. But periodically I'll look at it and I'll look at some of the workouts I did. And a lot of that was in high school age. I was guided by a magazine that I subscribed to from Australia on exercise physiology and running. It was about the only one around at that time. We didn't have Runner's World. We didn't have a lot of research going on in the United States at that time. So I got really interested in the development of it all. And that's what prompted me to start the log.
So from Australia, was the magazine written by any of the famous coaches coming out of Australia?
So I can't, I mean, back in that era, this is the early to mid 1960s. We had people from New Zealand as well who were great runners. Peter Snell.
Right, I know that name.
And a number of other ones that actually in New Zealand and Australia, they had a lot of Olympic champions at the distance races. Murray Halberg, people of that level. And they did all kinds of crazy training, including Peter Snell. He was the Olympic champion in 1960 in the 800 meters. And in 1964, he won the 800 and the 1500, but he would go on a weekly 20-mile run. So it was like, okay, got to start running distance. So that inspired me when I was still in high school.
Wow. So when you went down to Macomb's Dam Park, did you take the train down from Westchester? How did you get there?
No, I drove because I lived in near White Plains, Hartsdale.
Not that far.
No, and so I drove down myself. I had access to a car.
Were you one of the youngest runners at that time at Macomb's?
Absolutely, I was the kid. I was the youngest guy. Everybody was, old. They were like 25 or 30 or 40.
Isn't that funny how when you're 17, you look at these runners who were, not even in their prime yet, and you're thinking, oh, wow, they're old.
Right. And guys like Vince Chiappetta. In fact, I ran into Vince at the 50th anniversary of the New York City Marathon, which I was invited to. And he said, yeah, I remember you. You were the kid. And he says, I used to be the kid way back.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it is. So he's still alive and kicking and doing well.
He is. He's absolutely great. So you did run for Millrose. That was your first running club?
Correct. And we would do races pretty much every other weekend. And then there were training runs at times as well. And the races were a combination of, it might be a 5 mile race around Yankee Stadium on the sidewalk. And guys like who were faster than me, and national champions in their own right, Ed Winrow, uh, well, and Ted Corbett would certainly be there, and a whole host of people. And I was in the middle of the pack, but these were all great runners. So
Yeah.
my motivation was to try to catch them. But when you run around Yankee Stadium, if you're short, if you're behind somebody by 20 or 30 meters, it's a big oval, so you don't even see who's in front of you because they're around the next corner.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. And then we would alternate weekends where you would do a short run like that, 5 miles, and then the following weekend would be a long run, and they would be built up towards the Boston Marathon, so that you would do 10 miles one week, 14 2 weeks later, 16, 18. And then there it was, the Cherry Tree Marathon, and then the Boston Marathon.
I've seen pictures of and videos of you guys running through Macomb Dam Park, and you ran in all sorts of awful weather on the streets with the cars, with that little tiny, clubhouse that I guess you would change in.
Right.
You had to have a lot of camaraderie to enjoy that.
That's correct. And somehow they talked me into running the Cherry Tree Marathon in February of 1967. And it was there that those elements that you talked about were true. It was 15 degrees temperature. And, we didn't have any technical gear or goo or what have you.
No super shoes, no
nothing.
Nothing.
No, we didn't have polyester. So what we wore was heavy cotton sweatshirts, heavy gloves, sweatpants while you were running out there. So Joe Kleinerman, who was the coach, I asked him, how should I run this race? And he said, follow Corbett. So I didn't know who Ted Corbett really was. So I just followed him. And it was a 4.5 mile loop down Sedgwick Avenue and back and forth, back and forth. And so I just stayed right behind Ted as long as I could. And Joe Kleinerman, when you got back to the start finish area, he had a tiny little cup of water that was half frozen. That was our aid station.
That was it for the whole marathon, frozen water.
That's what it was. And then Ted, he certainly, being a 1952 Olympian, he knew what he was doing, and he wasn't going to let this young kid catch him. So he took off on the last lap and he beat me. But I did run under 3 hours thanks to Ted.
But at the time, wasn't Ted 48 years old?
That's correct.
To your 17?
Yeah, and he was 48. And so that was pretty amazing once I found all that out.
Yeah.
And I have a picture.
Everyone's hero.
I have a picture of Ted and me in that race that Gary had sent to me some years ago. Gary Corbett sent to me. And it's one of the best memories I have. And there he is. We're all decked out in these warm-up clothes that we didn't take off because you couldn't. And me right behind him with the old cars on Sedgwick Avenue.
I hope you have that framed somewhere.
I have it on my cell phone, and I show it to a lot of people, and they're amazed.
Yeah, I bet. I think often of what your times would be if you didn't have heavy cotton clothing that just hung off you, and you didn't have any goo, no water, nothing. I mean, you probably could have run a lot faster in a day with day equipment.
Right. We didn't have GPSs on our watches. We didn't have any of that. And so a lot of the efforts we put into a race were just like, go as hard as you can.
For as long as you can.
and for as long as you can. And so you developed a sense of how you felt as opposed to a watch dictating what you were going to do. And you went by effort.
Yes.
And so, I learned to relax behind Ted Corbett. He taught me many, many lessons of how to run a marathon. And to this day, that's my inspiration and I still run.
Well, a lot of coaches, even today, will advise their runners to every once in a while take off the watch and
Right.
learn to run by effort.
Right. And that's what I try to tell people that. But the watches are so sophisticated now, they'll tell you your heart rate. People want to go by heart rate. They'll tell you what your turnover, your paces, of your stride, and all those things are important. But I'm kind of like you can tell, old school, and go by feel.
Yeah.
And we could go out and run a 6 minute mile if somebody asked us to do that, and we would hit it right on the head because we could feel it. We didn't have to use a watch.
Exactly. And that's what, happens with a lot of the kids growing up today. They get so dependent on the
Right.
technology that they don't know what to do when they don't have it. And I remember, when Michael Phelps was first coming on the scene and winning all those gold medals, every once in a while his coach would make him swim without knowing the time, and sometimes without goggles, just to teach him to feel the water. And that, that's what old school people did.
Right. Exactly.
Did you ever run the Yonkers Marathon?
Yes, I did, twice. And that was also in 1967. And usually that was in the summer or early fall. And, after you've run with Ted Corbett and you've run the Boston Marathon, which I had done, and I ran 2 hours and 44 minutes, right behind Gary Murphy in 1967. The next marathon was the Yonkers Marathon, and I was a little bit cocky. Being the youngster again, I went out in the lead with Jim McDonough, and we led the race for the first 10 miles. And with the motorcycles around us, it's very exciting. But little did I realize that the race is longer than 10 miles. So I eventually had to drop off that pace, and I finished, not a very good time because I was pretty well beat up after the first 10 miles with Jim McDonough, who won the race.
In 1967,
Yep.
you run your very first marathon at Cherry Tree,
Right,
and then you go up to Boston,
that's correct.
and then you come back and run Yonkers.
Well, actually, we did, yeah, I did. And then before that, we ran the 30K national championship, which is 18.6 miles, in Beltsville, Maryland. And it was a national championship for 30K. And again, I was with the Milrose Club, and I ran that very well. I took 11th place overall, and our Milrose team won with Jim McDonough and I can't remember. Bob Fitz, I believe it was,
Mhm.
who was a younger guy, older than me. But so we won the team championship with the three of us. And so then came the Yonkers Marathon shortly thereafter.
So these are all like literally months apart.
Right. It was amazing. And actually,
No
Here-
coach would ever advise someone to do that today.
right, we didn't know any better. So in fact, because my school did not have a track team, in that time period, 1967, in May, I organized at my school because I was a little rebellious that they weren't having a track team. I said there was a world record for relay running, and a number of schools, colleges had set the world record for a distance running relay with 12 people. So I said, well, let's go get the record. So I organized 12 guys, myself as the team captain, and we ran during school. I got everybody's schedules, and we made a schedule for one whole week where we ran for 200 hours from I guess it was a whatever, 7 days straight. And we had, we got permission to occupy the physical education building to sleep some of our people there so we could run at nighttime as well. So in that relay, we ran 1,441 miles, 200 hours nonstop with 12 guys. And I was able to run 235 miles in that week.
Jesus,
It's crazy.
that is crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we broke the record. And, we got all this fanfare. We had helicopters flying overhead. We had the New York Daily News reporting it. So we made headlines back then. So, yeah, how did we do all that? I don't know. I guess I was on steroids or something.
Well, I was just thinking with everything you're telling me, starting in elementary school and then continually running and running well and setting records and winning everything. And then you become the kid at McCombs. Then you run 3 marathons in a matter of months. And then you set a world record in your high school. What was driving you? Was it passion? Was it something you just felt you were good at? Was it the camaraderie? What drove you?
All of that. Um, I was a highly motivated athlete, and I just liked challenges, and I would go for it. And I was not intimidated by, running with older people who were much better than me, and I just got out there and did the best I could. And
Because I was also going to say in 1967, there were not a lot of people running. I mean, it was before
no,
shorter. And if you were a runner, like everyone you met at McCombs, they were serious runners. They were out to win.
right, they were. And that's what I learned from them. I learned that particularly from Ted Corbett and guys like Gary Murphy. Um, and it goes back to that quote I gave you earlier, having a sound mind and a sound body and always pursuing a higher level. And that's something I got from my parents. My parents were very hardworking people, the German background, known to take on challenges. My dad was a very good athlete. He was a skier, Boy Scout leader, and all of those things always were put out to us as challenges that would be something that would inspire us. And we got a lot of positive feedback. When you get a lot of positive feedback, then you continue to do that.
I was just going to ask you about your parents because you obviously were doing something all through those years that was a little different. And your parents, I would imagine, would have had to have been supportive because, and that's such a positive when you have your parents or your peers, telling you this is a good thing, keep doing it.
Right. And like I said earlier, they started us, my brother and I, out in gymnastics. And then at age 5, I was on skis. They would take us skiing all over New York State, despite the fact that we lived in the city. Um, we would go to upstate New York. We'd go to Canada. So at age 5, I was introduced to, the scary thing, going down a ski slope.
Yeah, that's a lot scarier than running around a track.
Yeah, and then at age 6, my brother and I were going down the ski slope without poles. We're just, little guys scooting around. So there's always the challenge and the excitement of athletics, which translated then actually not only to running, but my entire career. So in my professional career, it was always, I was the guy out front, and I learned leadership and took on many, many different things in New York State that I think my athletic and running background really helped promote me, gave me the confidence to do things that were necessary and you wanted to get to the next level of whatever it was.
Yeah, you had an incredible upbringing.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Fortunate to have parents that promoted that and gave you that drive.
Yeah, even my dad, he ran his first marathon when he was 59 years old. and he came up here to Rochester where I am, and um, I ran with him every step of the way. We had a windstorm, and he had no idea what he was doing, but I just paced him. And for a 59-year-old guy who had never done much distance running, um, he ran 3 hours and 32 minutes.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. And had he been 60, he would have qualified for the Boston Marathon and what have you. And so it was that kind of inner drive that I got from him. Even at age 65, he lived in Pennsylvania at that time. He was the captain of the Nordic Ski Patrol, and they go out, be ready to help people out on the ski slopes as a volunteer.
Yeah, that's
Well,
fantastic.
that's the kind of upbringing I had and the positivity of being with other people.
Yeah, what a great role model. So getting back to our questions, although I could speak about your parents and your upbringing the rest of the time, who were your rivals mostly I guess in running in the marathons, or who were your biggest rivals?
My biggest rival was probably myself.
A great answer.
Um, I learned over the years more about planning appropriately. Um, Gary Murky and we went back and forth back in the day, and he was probably maybe 10 years older than me. There would be races that he would win over me. And then there were occasional times that I would beat Gary Murky.
Wow.
To me, it was like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
He just had a bad day, probably.
Running the very first Center Park Marathon, the 5 loops around the park.
The what one?
The first New York City Marathon in the park.
No, I did not. I had moved out of the area already.
Oh.
And so I was up here. I did run the 5 borough New York City Marathon. I believe it was 1975. And, I had an okay day. I ran about 3 hours. I didn't run it too smart. Went out too fast. You know how that goes, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we all do.
Yes, that's correct. So all those lessons learned and my running experience, I've never stopped. I just ran a 5K last weekend cross country, and it's slower than heck. but but I have a new motto. We had 12 guys on my team that are over 70 years of age, and we divided up into 3 separate teams in this cross country race, and each of our teams beat their rivals. And my motto now for anybody over 70 is finishing is winning.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So you are a big proponent of age divisions and age groups at races?
Right. Which we didn't have back in those early years.
No.
There may have been a master's category, but USA Track and Field has developed very nicely over the years in both cross country and road races. So the club that I coach, we have anywhere from 110 to 150 runners, all post-collegiate or masters runners. And in USA Track and Field, masters for road races and track or road races and cross country is 40, and they have 5-year age groups, and then they have 10-year age group teams.
Mm-hmm.
So my running club, we have a lot of really good runners. Fortunately, over the 28 years that I've been coaching that club, we've won over 100 national team championships.
That's fantastic. You must be a great coach.
I don't know about that. I wind up getting good people.
Well, yes, but it's all about the coaching. As you know, anyone who's part of a team,
Well, I do
No.
motivate people, and even though my race this last weekend was very, very slow, I did it. And, the younger people see that, and I tell them, yeah, you can do this too.
Well, you become an inspiration. I mean, not many people in their, mid to late 70s are still out there and they might be running, but they're not racing.
Right,
And when you have age group divisions at races, it gives you something to look forward to. It gives you something to, to be challenged for.
correct. And when you've been running for quite a while, you can figure out when your opportunities are. There are about 10 Masters National Championship races across the country, and we target 5 or 6 of them, and we send maybe up to 40 or 50 people.
Well,
Uh,
that's a lot.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. We've built a organization that we get some funding from uh, donations from people. We have a small membership dollar amount, and we support people like paying for hotels and entry fees. They
Well,
just got
that's a huge help. That is a huge help.
correct. And so that's one of the reasons we've been able to be as successful as we have been.
And didn't you tell me that you also coached people on your team that actually went to the Olympic trials,
Yes,
Olympic marathon trials?
I've had several athletes that made the Olympic trials in the marathon. Um, one young man, he qualified actually back in 2016. He had to run uh, 2 hours and I think at that time maybe 2 hours and 19 minutes, and he had run 2 hours and 21 minutes. So they allowed people then to qualify with a half marathon time. So his last chance was to run a half marathon in under 1 hour and 5 minutes, which is 4:57 a mile.
Oof.
So we sent him down to Jacksonville, Florida, and there were a bunch of people who were going to make it this last opportunity, this last chance. So I gave him workouts that he said, I don't know if I can do that. I'd say something like, well, the average pace is 4:57. So here's what I want you to do. Run 2 miles at 4:57, and then I want you to drop one down to 4:45 right after it,
Oh my gosh.
and then do it again. And eventually we got to 3 miles at 4:57 and then drop it down. And so he goes down to Jacksonville, Florida, and what does he do? He runs 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 55 seconds. He made it by 5 seconds
Jeez.
because of specificity of training.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so he had rehearsed it basically, and there was a group of people that also made it, and then he did it again in 2020. We went to Los Angeles for the trials. It was very hot. That same young man, I had him run in the Mount Washington road race, road race, which was up Mount Washington, New Hampshire. It was the national championship, and the top 6 runners would go to the world championship. He had never run a mountain race in his life. And this is after he ran the 2012 Boston Marathon in second American and 11th overall. So here he is in the race going up Mount Washington, and lo and behold, with a mile to go, he's in 7th place. And I said to him, "Go get him, Tim." So I get up to the top of the mountain. It's a 7.5 mile route up with a 12% average grade. There's no downhill at all. And I said, "Did you get him? Did you get him?" He said, "No, I got 7th." I said, "Oh no." He says, "But don't worry. The guy in front of me, he was from Italy. He's a 5-time world champion. He didn't count."
Uh,
So off we went to Italy for the world championship a few months later.
but you know what that says about you as a coach is that they believe in you. they follow what you say and they believe in you. And that's, another good quality of a coach. Okay, so getting back to our questions. You started to run at a time, pre-Title IX, so not a lot of women out there. Although Nina Cusick was a staple at Macomb Dam Park and also at a lot of marathons. Were there any other women you remember running in the 60s or early 70s?
Well, I remember as an 18-year-old, there were some 15-year-old young ladies. I can't remember their names now, but Joe Kleinerman was very pro women running. And so he allowed, we had fun runs sometimes in the summertime. We go to Staten Island or a park on Long Island, and we do 1 or 2 mile runs.
Mhm.
And some of the younger kids would participate in that. In 1967, there was Catherine Switzer, as you know.
Correct. At Boston, got thrown out.
Boston, and she got all the attention that year.
Yes.
And then we both got to run it 50 years later in 2017. And she was really, I think, the inspiration for the women's marathon in 1984.
Yes, the women's
Don't blank it.
Olympic marathon for women. She and a
Right.
lot of women uh, really, really worked hard to get that. Nina was a part of that. Jackie, her last name is escaping me. They were all part of that to move it forward for women.
Right, they
Yeah.
actually did, and it was a great thing. And I tell women now of all ages some of that history, so they have an appreciation for it.
Oh, of course, they have to. Just trying to think of her last name. Jackie Hansen. She was
That's
also
right.
part of that.
Yep. Mhm.
All right. So, any other, before we move on to the clubs and everything else, any other people or stories about that era that stand out in your mind, like Art Hall? Did you ever run against him?
I did. And sometimes in the winter races, I remember Art Hall winning one of the Macomb Dam Park 8 milers, and I think I took third, way behind him. It was on a snowy day. Um, so Bill Rogers and I have run against each other. I think 9 years ago at the Boilermaker in Utica.
Oh, that's a great race. I love that one.
15K, 9.3 miles. We would actually have dinner together at somebody's house. Bill Rogers was there, and we'd share some stories, and we were in the same age group. And I think it was 2015. I beat Bill Rogers a couple.
No,
You know,
that's worth crowing about. That's
yeah,
worth.
that's right. So,
So I remember you once talking to Nina about Macomb's Dam Park, because when you go there now, you don't really see a dam. And I said, Nina, why did they call it Macomb's Dam Park? And she said, I think just because it was so damn hard.
it was damn hard.
Yeah, she had a very funny twist on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so memories of racing formats: handicap, postal, track races, 10 miler, anything there that.
Yeah, we did these handicap races. Joe Kleinerman was famous for that, and setting that up. So if you were going to run, let's say it was a 10 mile run, and your time was going to be an hour, so 6 minute pace, which would be pretty fast, but not the fastest. You might go start the race before Jim McDonough, who might do it in 5:45 per mile pace. He would start a few minutes later, and it would go back like that.
Mhm.
I actually really love that kind of racing because it gave everybody an opportunity to be the winner.
Right. Yeah, at some point in the race, it all averages out.
Yeah, and then I learned from that how to chase people down, because there were people in front of me. So it's like, okay, I got one. Now I'm gonna go get two. Now I'm gonna go get three. And I try to teach that to people now. But that's how you finish a race is you look at who's right in front of you. The race, you may not win the race, but you're gonna win the race around you.
Right.
So you go after the people who you can see, you can catch, and that motivates you. So that's one of the techniques I really learned from the handicap races. They were wonderful.
Yeah, that is a great technique. And it's a lot of fun at the end when you find that energy to just peel off people. Like, all right, I got that one. Now I'm going to go for the next one. And you don't
That's
know
right.
it's the end of the race. You're tired, but it's that motivation.
That's right. And so there you throw the watch away
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
you do.
you are going with what you've got. And
Yeah.
that's what I tell people you have, and how to relax behind somebody for a while, who you just caught. Rest for a little bit, then go get the next one.
Right, right. And there's always gas in the tank. That's what I find.
Yeah.
So there's a long list of clubs here, if you can see them. Do any of these clubs stand out as great competitors or anything about these clubs that stand in mind?
Well, the New York Pioneer Club, certainly Ted Corbett started, I don't know if he started it, but
He did not start it. Joe Yancey and Ed Levy started it, but he was, one of their great runners.
yeah, so many of the clubs you have listed here, Central Park Track Club, Long Island Striders, the New York AC, the Pioneer Club, St. Anthony's, United. These were small clubs in the metropolitan area at the time, and they would all come to the races that Joe Kleinerman particularly put on. And Aldo Scandura, you know that name.
Yes, of course, of course.
And he was one of the founders of the New York Road Runners and promoted women's running as well.
Yes. Now, were you running for Milrose at the time of all these other clubs?
Yes, right.
Okay.
So somehow I lucked out in picking the right club.
Were any of these clubs a huge competitor? Like if Milrose, no, you were on Milrose. If Staten Island showed up, you'd be like, "Ooh."
No, I think more the New York AC, which is still big today.
Yes, yeah.
And Central Park Track Club was just forming then, really.
That was for real serious runners.
Right. So I see some of these clubs now when we go to races, but on a more national level, we go against Atlanta. Excuse me, some of the clubs from California. And we have a reputation as a club, being a small club. I mean, you compare our club with 120 members to Atlanta, which has 5,000 members.
Yeah.
And we go head to head with them. And oftentimes we'll beat them and they'll beat us. And we get to know each other. And that's one of the beauties of masters running and national running. You get to know people from around the country and you become friends with them. And that's a great advantage to what our sport is all about. And we look forward to each other coming to an event, communicating via Facebook or message. Excuse me. And actually, back in April, I ran the national championship for 10K for Masters in Dedham, which is just outside of Boston.
Oh, of course, I've run that one. The one.
Yeah, and I love that course. In fact, one year I took second in my age group at the national championship. It was one of the better races that I had. That was about 10 years ago. But this race, my goal was just to finish. The goal was not run nonstop. And I did. And I contributed to scoring for the men's 40 or 49 team because we needed a third guy. But after the race, we were standing around for quite a while, like 2 hours before they gave out awards, and it was hot and there was no water around. And unfortunately, I fainted.
Oh no!
Yeah. So I wound up with EMTs looking at me and saying, you're going to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital. That was my prize for the day, riding in an ambulance. But the reason I'm telling you this is that I just was dehydrated, and I stayed a short while in the hospital. They gave me an IV, and they said, "You're fine, go home." Um, but after that, I had people from other clubs around the country calling, emailing me, saying, "Are you okay?"
Mm, yeah.
So you have those kinds of friendships, which I don't know if you have that in any other sport.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic that the James Joyce Ramble, which is the one you're talking about, is famous. And I mean, you can't get a better runner than Jan Holmquist. She's amazing. She's a world-class runner. So
Right,
when you show up there and you do well there, the camaraderie is amazing.
that's right. And
And that's,
so
I mean, you see these people once a year, but you follow them and you look forward to seeing them. And that's one of the beauties of our sport.
right, and that's where a team comes in. I had that with the Milrose to a certain extent. Um, now we try to recruit people. I tell them it's so much easier to improve if you run with other people and you develop camaraderie. We just had a party here at our house, and we had 63 people here for dinner. And it's our annual club meeting. Um, and the camaraderie is just phenomenal that you have contact with all these people and you respect one another, you care about one another, and you communicate outside of the running.
Hmm. Yeah. And you could be beaten by somebody and then at the finish you hug each other and follow each other's arms and
Right,
it's that fierce competition to
for
win at
sure.
all costs, but when it's over, you just appreciate the other person because one, you you followed them and they set a great pace. Like I remember at the James Joyce Ramble when I ran it, I was running against this what I thought, he was an older man, but I didn't know how old he was, and we were going at it. Didn't matter that we were, male, female, and when we crossed, he was a little bit ahead of me, and he turned around and he shook my hand, and he was like 80 years old.
Right,
Like this is
exactly.
amazing.
And that's what it's all about. It's really uh, the personal satisfaction of completing something and that camaraderie.
Yes.
And that's what we get, especially at the older ages. I think there's more movement for the younger people in their 40s because they have families, you don't see them as often, they have kids, they don't get to the events like some of the old codgers like me.
True. All right, so we got to move on here. Memories of the publications, distance running, track and field news, the list, track techniques, long distance log. Did you uh, prescribe to any of them? Did you subscribe and get any of the magazines? Did you keep
Yeah,
the
I think
magazines?
the distance running news became Runner's World, but that just started in about 1968. Um, so it wasn't around, but um, the long distance log by Browning Ross was something that I had a few copies of. And um, I think it was Joe Kleinerman, coach of the Milrose, that published a monthly newsletter that you got a mimeographed sheet of paper with a couple of
Mhm.
pages on it. All of those, by the way, are in the New York Roadrunners history
Yes.
section.
Yes, and Ted Corbett used to publish the newsletter, and that's exactly what he would do, just like mimeograph copies of off,
Right. And I think you paid $5 a year, maybe if that much.
if that. And if you couldn't, you got it anyway.
Right. And so when Runner's World came out with Bob Anderson as the publisher, I used to collect every one of them. And for many years, I had 50 years of Runner's World magazine. Didn't know what to do with them. So finally,
Yeah, I know a lot of people saved all the old Runner's World magazine, and then finally they just,
right,
nobody wants them anymore. It's
right,
unfortunate that a lot of the great running magazines like Runner's World, Running Times, Marathon and Beyond, they're
right.
gone.
Well, and now Runner's World magazine comes to my house, but I don't subscribe to it. I think the magazines have to show that they send out a lot to get the advertisements.
Maybe, maybe. Do you get a regional one? Like here we get New England Runner.
Yeah, I don't get New England Run. I'm well aware of it. It's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. Okay, governing bodies of our sport, the AAU, the RRCA, of course, New York Roadrunners. What are your thoughts about any of those? People have a lot of thoughts about the AAU.
Yes, back in the early days of my running, when I was 18 and 20 years of age, it was the AAU, and unfortunately, um, there was no prize money for runners. It was illegal to accept money,
Mm-hmm.
and it was guys like uh, Frank Shorter, Bill Rogers, um, and a number of other runners that protested. And they were rebelling against the system where um, the officials from, I guess it was the AAU, would be getting money from foreign countries to send athletes to international competition. And they would keep the money, and the athletes would not get any rewards for it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And they barely got any travel money. But they changed that system. Um, and Steve Prefontaine was a leader in that movement as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to change.
Yeah, the AAU did some pretty shameful things.
Yeah. So, but then it improved, and actually, over the last 25 years, the USA track and field has been great. They
Yeah.
really have expanded uh, uh, running not only for the Olympic athletes, but also masters running and youth. And they're great promoters. I've been on a few of the committees. I'm proud to say that in 1998, our club won the Masters 40 to 49-year-old cross country championship. It was our first national championship. And the rules back then were they based it on the top 5 guys by their time. And I rebelled against that because runners number 6 and 7 got no recognition whatsoever, or did they play a role in how they scored it? So I protested and I said, this is incorrect. In high school and in college, it is by place that runners get scored in cross country. And so it took 5 years, 6 years actually, to get that rule changed. And once we changed it, everybody can contribute. You could be the 7th runner on a team and help your team by scoring in front of other teams.
Right.
And expanded how many people would participate in running, and it gave everybody an opportunity to contribute.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so it took 6 years to get that rule change for cross country.
Good. Well, that's sort of a segue into the next question. How has the sport evolved? And you helped move it forward with ruling like that. Did you know Fred Lebo?
Not really. I knew Vince Chiappetta, and I know he and Fred were really the organizers of how the New York City Marathon got started. I don't know if you've spoken with Vince.
We interviewed him a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he told me the story about how the New York City Marathon started. He had tried for years and years, but the city parks department didn't want anything to do with them running in Central Park until Fred Lebo came along and he said, we have money. And he wasn't necessarily, outstanding runner, but Fred Lebo then met with the Parks Department people, and Vince was invited, but they didn't know he was coming because the Parks Department director didn't really like Vince.
Right, because he kept hammering them about doing a marathon.
Right. And so finally, there was some dispute, and the day that they were meeting, the Parks Department director sent 2 other people because he had quit that day. And Vince Chiappetta and Fred Lebo convinced these two new young guys that this was a great idea, and they got it through. And it was quite a story to hear that
Yeah.
that's how that happened, because Vince had tried for so many years unsuccessfully,
Mhm.
and then he and Fred were able to do that.
Well, Fred was a great showman.
Right,
He talk anyone into anything.
right.
So we talked about toughest marathon courses, and would you give that to Cherry Tree or Yonkers?
Well, Yonkers is extremely difficult. There's so many hills in it, and it's in a hotter time of the year. Um, I love the Cherry Tree Marathon, being my first marathon. So, a good course, could have been a little warmer.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't affect the weather.
But probably the Boston Marathon is my favorite. And I have a racing strategy that I put together, that athletes, when they follow it, they do very well.
At Boston?
Yes,
Are you gonna share?
I can.
Yeah, what
I
is
mean,
it?
it's pretty simple, actually. Outside Magazine was going to publish it because they heard about it from the BAA people, but in the end, they didn't for some reason. Um, but essentially, the first 5 or 6 miles is downhill. Um, so I tell everybody, don't make the mistake I did, which was go out too hard, because it feels so easy. You can wind up running 30 to 45 seconds per mile faster than your average goal pace. And if you do that, you're going to be trash.
Right, by mile 16, when you hit those hills, it's gonna be like, I can't.
So I tell them, well, take advantage of the hill, but only by about 15 seconds per mile at most. And be conservative there. But relax and just glide down those hills and let them take you. So if you do that, and then each section of the course, I lay out what's there, what hills to look for, and where to make you move. So it's really all about the start in that race and
Mhm.
conserving yourself for later and being prepared for the hills, and then what is kind of a downhill finish as well. Those last 3 or 4 miles is somewhat downhill, and it's a very exciting race. There's no doubt about it. I've done it 6 times.
Very exciting. All right, so there's a whole list of first generation New York Roadrunner pioneers. I'm not going to read them all, but you have them. Does anyone stand out that you knew, or you have a story about, or was influential?
Well, I got to go back to Ted Corbett, because I was able to travel to a few races with him, and so I think he was an inspiration to me more than anybody. Um, as a physical therapist, he was this quiet, unassuming individual who was so polite and kind to everybody. So, for example, we drove down to Maryland. I was in a carpool with him, and I hear all kinds of great stories and got to know the man. And his style impressed me, and I've tried to emulate parts of that as best as I can.
Mhm.
Um, Gary Murphy, he was kind of a rebel. Uh, I remember he was he was on disability from the fire department. I don't know if you've heard this story, because he had a back problem. So he's on disability. But one year back in, I think it was 67 or 68, he won the race up the steps of the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
And they show a big picture of him in the New York Daily News, standing there with his arms up, and he wins. But guess what?
That was the
The
end
fire
of
department
it.
didn't like that. So took him to court. And they said, how can you run up the Empire State Building but not be able to work? He
Yeah, I
won the
guess
case.
he
Gary Murphy won the case.
he won the case.
He won the case.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that story.
Yeah. So he's, and I've seen Gary a couple of times in oh, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, running at a race that I was at. He was running for a, of course, Gary's famous for his running shoe stores in New
Yeah.
York, and he created some teams himself that ran for his shoe store.
Hmm.
Once in a while, they needed another guy, so he jumped in, and that's the kind of spirit he always.
His wife Jane was the one who first fashioned the laurel wreaths out of flowers from her garden.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've met her, and she's extremely supportive, and was one of the pioneers of helping to make the women equal to men.
Yes. Yeah. They're a great couple. Great couple. Anyone else stand out here that we haven't talked about?
Um, well, we certainly knew Frank Shorter. I've run into Frank a couple of times over the years. He won the 1972 Olympic marathon, and I think that was the real start of the boom in running.
Yes. Yeah.
And things took off from there.
How about Kurt Steiner?
Kurt Steiner. I knew Kurt Steiner.
Everyone seems to have a Kurt Steiner story.
Well, Kurt Steiner was, I think he stood about 5 feet tall, and he would run marathons, but he was also a race official. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
He would officiate like at the Milrose Games, and he would always run after the winner. And as soon as they crossed the finish line, he'd run out to them, and you'd watch it on TV or when I went to the Milrose Games. So Kurt Steiner was a character that was really enjoyable and loved the sport. And I don't think he ever, was a great runner, but he was there to support it all in any way he could.
Mm-hmm.
So Kurt Steiner was a great guy.
Yeah, someone else I interviewed said Kurt was famous for running out in any race as fast as he could, and then he would just die.
Right, that's true.
How about John Sterner?
Don't know him.
Oh, he was okay.
Now Tom Bedarian, I know, who's the coach of the Greater Boston Track Club, and Tom was a phenomenal runner back in the day, and we started meeting at races about 20 years ago, and we're the same age, and so Tom and I would duke it out to see who would win, and we would go back and forth. I'd win one, he'd win one. I'd go win one. Now he's probably a little bit ahead of me because I've had some health issues. But Tom is just a wonderful, wonderful guy who's written so much and done so much for the sport that he's just a phenomenal guy. My wife and I have had dinner with him and his wife. He did the film about the Boston Marathon.
Oh, that's such a great film. It makes me cry every time I see it.
And my wife and my son and I were able to go to the premiere showing of that in Boston. Can't remember exactly what year, 2017, I think. And we had the Boston Symphony. He helped get the Boston Symphony to play the music live during the presentation of the movie. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And if people haven't seen that movie, they should see that movie.
Oh, absolutely.
All the great people in running and who had an influence in marathoning are in that film, and they were present that day. Bill Rogers was there, Frank Shorter was there, Catherine Switzer was there, and they all are so important to what has happened with the sport.
Yeah.
And how the Boston Marathon has evolved.
Well, that's why we do this, Mike, why we're talking and why we're capturing, this history, because it is so important. And when Tom makes a movie like that, or when he writes his Boston Marathon books, it's capturing that. And you coach young kids. Do you find that they're interested in the history, or do you make it something that they need to know? because I talk to a lot of young kids and they don't know anybody. They don't know Frank
Oh,
Shorter. They don't know anybody's name.
right. So, I mean, I'll toss it out once in a while about a little story here and there. But I think for whatever reason, they have other things going on in their life
Yeah.
that are a higher
Social
priority.
media. Too much social media.
Well, that's true. And although my wife often listens to podcasts now about running, and there are a couple of really good ones. Um, Running with Allie,
Oh, Allie on the Run. That's
Allie on
fantastic.
the Run.
There's so many now. There is so
Right.
many podcasts now.
So my wife absolutely loves that. When she goes to work, she listens to that constantly
Mhm.
uh, with Kara Goucher and Desi.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was so great to hear them narrate, or at least Kara narrates some of the Olympics
Yeah,
track and field. She has such a great perspective.
yeah.
You know, it seems like I want to talk about your wife a little bit because she seems very supportive and has been a big part of your running life.
Well, actually, my wife and I have been together for about 11 years. I remarried, and it was through running that we met. Um, and she came to a clinic of mine that I do for actually the Greater Rochester Track Club, a different club. And she did very well, and I suggested she join our club, and she did.
Did you
And
have ulterior motives when you suggested that?
what's that?
Did you have ulterior motives when you suggested that?
Probably. Yes. Well, then she had been a runner for some time, but she had never competed at a very high level. So I sent her down to the National Masters 1 mile road championship in Pittsburgh, and we sent a team down there. I didn't go, and she sat on the streets, and the streets were just it was like a U in downtown Pittsburgh where they ran this race, and the the streets were packed with people along the sidelines, and she was like in shock that she was in this event with Nash, and they started announcing people who were in the next race and said, and former Olympian is going to be in this next race, and she just about melted, and um, she was so excited and but really tense. She sat down and did a little prayer to help her get through it. And she did. She
Mm.
wound up taking third place in her age group.
You're kidding. That's
Oh,
huge.
right. And she broke an all-time record of hers, going under 6 minutes. Um, and she was just so excited.
Wow, you must have been so proud of her.
Yes, exactly.
Aw, that's a great
So,
story.
yeah, and probably one of my best coaching stories is about a woman that started with me when she was 48 years old. She came to these clinics I did too. This is 22 years ago, and she wanted to run a 5K without stopping. Her name is Carolyn Smith Hannah, and so we got her to run the 5K without stopping. I said, "Wow, you got some pretty good speed. Why don't you join our running club, the Genesee Valley Harriers?" So after 2 years of running with us, she set the world record for the mile for women 50 and over. And she ran a 5:22 for a mile. And then she did it again at age 55. She ran a 5:43, which is the world record for the mile for 55-year-olds.
What's her name again?
Carolyn Smith Hannah. And she's a local person that never had, and this is what I tell this story to people to tell them, you may have something inside of you that you don't realize
Mm.
that we can get you to a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about it now like it changed my life.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing to do. Have you ever been coach of the year? It sounds like you should be multiple coaches of the year for everything you've done for people.
No, not with the coaching effort, other than all the winning championships that we've had. Um, More on a professional side, I've won numerous awards, for my, professional work.
And with pediatrics?
Yes, and, at one point, I guess the highest honor I had was, um, back in 1986, I was appointed by, Governor Mario Cuomo as, chairman of the New York State Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. So we oversaw the planning for all ages of people with disabilities. And I had headed up that state agency.
Mm-hmm.
And we did remarkable things, I believe, in that period of time. And you may know of Willowbrook on Staten Island,
Mm-hmm.
an institution with 5,000 people who were severely disabled, and they were not treated well at all. Back in that era, Senator Robert Kennedy went there and he said, it was a snake pit. It was, just unbelievable. You'd have 50 people in a dormitory with two people taking care of them, and beds side by side, and people sleeping on the floor or running around with no clothing. But what we did is we changed that system.
Mm-hmm.
We changed that system so that people came out of the institutions into community living. And we called it, normalization or quality of care for people with special needs. And now they're integrated into society and we have no institutions.
Well, that is something to be very proud of. And then, and in fact, you had something in common with Ted Corbett because he worked with the disabled.
Right. Yeah. And Ted, he was a champion at finding new approaches to dealing with people's physical problems. And he was such a kind man. He would travel on the subway to somebody's house to take care of them and give them some treatment and not even charge them.
Yeah.
He's kind of individual.
And he was also at the forefront of what he did because he would travel to Germany and to any other country that were doing things that we weren't doing here in the United States, and he would learn about them and he would bring them back here. He was an incredible healer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he's great.
Soft-spoken, wonderful gentleman.
Yes, he was. He certainly was.
And he was also, I'm sure, anybody who listens to this will know some of his history. I mean, he would run 200 miles a week. He'd run around Manhattan Island.
Yeah.
Go to work, up wherever the hospital was that he was working at. And then he'd run 20 miles back home.
And he did it in street shoes and street clothing.
Right. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I tell this story about, I got to know Ted pretty well, and it was at one of the New York Marathon expos. And it was before it moved downtown. It was still up in Columbus Circle. And he was sitting way apart from everybody. And I went over and I said, what are you doing here? You should be, out front with everyone. He goes, no, I'm happy just sitting here watching and observing. And while we were sitting there, I saw a runner walking towards Ted. And as this gentleman is walking, Ted said to me, all right, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with this gentleman. He's got this ailment, his shoulders dropped, and he's listing it all. And the man came over and he said, Mr. Corbett, could you help me? I have all these things wrong with me. And they were exactly the things that Ted had pointed out just watching him walk.
Right.
He was amazing.
Well, and then I also tell the story about Ted being the originator of standardizing
race courses. Yes.
Right.
Yes. He did on his bicycle.
So they're kind of in shock when they hear that I ran with this guy. And then I love the story that Gary Murphy tells. He says when they put the bronze bust of Ted Corbett in the New York Roadrunners Club office down in
yes, at the runners off of 40, the bronze head of
right. He said Gary Murphy said I looked at it and from the front of him I didn't recognize him, but when I looked at the back of his head I recognized him.
Yes, I get it. I get it.
Well, there's another tech
We
story.
really know from seeing the behind.
That's right.
Well, you've told some really great stories, Mike, and the fact that you grew up running starting from 16 with the greats, coached by Joe Kleinerman and influenced by Aldo Scandur and Vince Giappetta, John Garlip, all these people,
Right,
that just were part of your running life, and
right.
and still are. It's incredible. You've had a great run, as they say, but also a great career and have helped a lot of people. So I have so enjoyed talking with you and learning so much. Is there anything you want to conclude with?
Well, I appreciate what you're doing, and what Gary's doing.
Yes.
Uh, I'm at the age where it's like, okay, so what happens when we're not here?
I know.
You know,
Well, through this, you will live on. Your voice will live on, Mike.
I can tell my kids and grandkids, right?
Yes. Yes. How many grandkids do you have?
I have six and my wife has six, so between us we have 12.
Have you turned them into runners?
Well, my son was a very good runner, state champion, in high school, All-American in college. So yeah, and one daughter, she was on scholarship at Niagara University for running. And my other daughter, she was, an athlete in different ways. She did more field hockey and, lacrosse. So, and so athletics is an important part of, my kids and grandkids' life.
Mhm.
I have a grandson that was a state champion in gymnastics, and I have other grandchildren that are into whatever, volleyball, etc.
Well, we've got to keep these young kids active so that they just
Right.
don't fall into screen time.
Right. Well, and I happen to be very fortunate up here, and I have 4 acres of property. So we've set up an obstacle course, which has a, 15-foot cargo net, a 200-foot zip line, a climbing wall, balance boards, jumping boards, and all kinds of trails for the grandkids to run on and have fun.
It's
Uh,
amazing. I'm gonna have to come up and play on that.
there you go. So we have a good time with them, and they enjoy, um, and hopefully they get some benefit from that.
Yeah. Well, Mike, you have been an inspiration to many, many people, and I'm sure you will continue to be so.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your time. I appreciate that a lot.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll meet someday, Mike.
Okay, that would be good.
All right.
Come to New York, I'll let you know.
Good. Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, 'cause
Thank you for everything. Thank you for everything you've done.
yeah, okay. Well, my fleeting thought goes through my head once in a while, and that is that, oh, I'd like to run the New York City Marathon one more time.
Yeah. Hey, it's never too late, Mike.
Well, I know. So you may see me there someday.
Good. Let me know. I'll run it with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Take
Okay,
care.
thank you very much. Right.
Bye bye.
Bye now.